Welcome to the Tech Report podcast, where we help businesses survive, thrive, and create value.
Well, welcome everybody to the Tech Report, the podcast that is all about helping businesses survive, thrive, and create value, especially in our trying environment today. And I'm your host, Brad Stoller. Well, at the time of this podcast, businesses are rehiring. They're doing everything they can to expand their sales. But it seems to be a challenge because it seems half the businesses they're just doing their best to hang in there, as that pandemic is flaring up again. The other half of the businesses, they're growing like weeds. Okay, but the challenges out there for salespeople is that they have to adapt to new sales strategies, or they're just not going to be successful. It's just as simple as that. So for those businesses who are rapidly expanding, there's a new set of challenges in hiring the right people who can really be effective. And it can really be tricky, as most salespeople, they interview well. They look good on paper, but it ends up costing companies just hundreds of thousands of dollars when they make bad hires. So what the heck are they supposed to do about it, right? Well, today we're really lucky to have one of the country's top experts on hiring salespeople. He was on our show actually a few months back, and I'm really curious to see how things have changed in those 7 months, since we had him on the last time. So I'm honored again to have Jeff Hines from Accelerated Sales Leadership to give his insight into how to hire the right salesperson for your organization. And maybe he's got some other tips here that can help you manage the sales force. So Jeff, welcome again to the Tech Report.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you for the opportunity. And hello, everyone.
Well, great. So, Jeff, before we go too deep here, but just tell us a little bit about your background. I know it's been 7 months, so a lot of people that are listening today, maybe they didn't hear the episode before, so they don't know who you are yet. So tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got started in helping businesses make those right sales hires. Just give us your story.
Sure. So thank you again, Brad. So I've been in the IT sales world for about 35 years, last 20 in VP sales roles. And I would say about 5 years ago, I started using a hiring process that I'm going to touch on a little bit and really dedicated myself to it from a perspective that you don't go out there and try to hire people without a process and without a tool to help you. And it became apparent to me that it was very, very helpful as I went forward in my career hiring people. Right. So about a year and a half ago, I decided to go out and join my partner who's been in this business about 15 years and say, I want to give back. I enjoy teaching, coaching, mentoring. And so I jumped on over the fence, so to speak. And now I'm talking to VP of sales, CROs and CEOs on exactly how do you go about hiring A players into your organization without making that dreaded mistake and costing yourself, as you touched on, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep, exactly. And that's not an exaggeration. I've seen the numbers, and it could be massive if you've got a high level position you're trying to fill. It can be catastrophic to an organization, especially when they do it more than one time. It just keeps compounding, and you wonder why you can't make any money. So, well, I know the last time you were on with us, you focused on what salespeople needed to be doing. This is kind of at the start of the pandemic back then. So the world, has it changed? And business is really going to be moving forward no matter what is going on with the pandemic. I think we've all taken that stance. We just have to move on, no matter what. So the real trick for companies is to hire the right salespeople. And, it's tough out there. It really is. So let's start out with why you think it's so important to make the right hires, and then maybe talk about some of the critical mistakes that you see business owners and managers, what do they make in its form of mistakes, when they're, trying to hire the best ones?
Sure. Great question and a great topic to touch on. And what I would like to do, Brad, is start with some facts of hiring today and where we're at. So let's go back to February, prior to all of this starting, and what we have rolled into, so to speak. And there's an estimated 35 million people unemployed. That was around the July 2020. In that estimated number, there's about 17 to 19 million that were salespeople.
Yeah.
So now there's a lot of salespeople out there that are looking for jobs, and a lot of them are very good, and they're out there because the industry they were in, the company they were in, just wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
And I don't think anybody would argue or challenge that sales teams are key to revenue generation, obviously. But now more than ever, it needs to be almost perfect, because there's a lot of people looking for jobs. And if you make a mistake, it's going to cost you. And we have very, very little room for mistake today. And what you need to do is introduce a process into your organization. And that process really can have you deliver salespeople making their number up to 44% of the time, more than if you don't have a process.
So just the process alone,
yes,
can be a big deal. Well, makes sense.
Yes.
It makes sense, and it sounds like common sense, right? But it's not so common, is it?
No, it's not. And, to your point, I've come from the IT industry, sales in both hardware and software, and been fortunate to I've been with some companies that had very lucrative plans where you hire the wrong salesperson, sales manager. It can cost the company up to $500,000 within a year because of lost opportunity. You paid them their salary, and they came in, and guess what? They said they can sell, but could they sell your product in your industry to the customers that you're targeting for this person? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And it can cost the company dreadfully.
Yeah, and sales managers and especially the business owners, they really don't know what to do. I mean, they really don't know what to do and how to really. They just chalk it up and say, well, I guess I know if I hire 5 people, I'm going to get 1 good one, or whatever that percentage is for their business. They probably know it because they've done it a few times, but the phrase came out, early to hire and early to fire, I guess, or, I've heard that before. So, I think that might be where this is stemming from.
Well, and obviously when you're looking at it, why are salespeople or sales managers different? And we have something in our business we call the ghost test. Okay. And it actually is a form where, you can contact me to get that ghost form. But it's, how many hires have you had in the last 5 years? How many have fired and or quit the company? How much did that cost the company if you do track that?
Mm-hmm.
And then how many candidates did you really interview for that position? Did you have a process? You see where I'm going with it? Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so that becomes something that, you absolutely want to make sure that you're putting into your company. And process is a big word, right? But do you have a sales process? But when we say a hiring process, we're talking all the way from building the job description to posting the job description. Where are you sourcing those candidates? Then a bigger piece, automation.
Yeah, that's a buzzword, especially if you're in the IT industry, right?
Okay, so if you have something I've been using for many years, and then now I'm helping other companies with, if you have a tool that allows you, and let's say for a particular position, you've had 20 candidates come in, and you can break that down to the 4 or 5 that really are qualified and meet your criteria, that's going to save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. So now you've put it through that automation process, and what it allows you to do is get to the hire faster.
Yep, exactly. So, I know we've talked a little bit about, the problems when you make a mistake and a bad hire, but you had also mentioned there's opportunity cost. So this isn't just about the payroll part. but there's the training you got to do. There's the ramp up you have to do, and all the while it's going on, there's benefits. Um, I mean, there's so many effects. In fact, if you get a really bad hire, they can bring down some of the other people too. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that a bad hire. It's not just about the payroll, is it?
No, not at all. And you've hit on a couple of key things there, because onboarding is key. In a couple of other scenarios you just touched on, you take a C player and put them in an A territory, there's where you've just really killed your opportunity cost.
Yeah, good point.
Your C player is not going to take advantage of that. Now, there again, you take an A player and give them a C territory, you've not motivated that person.
Yep.
And then when that person walks in the door, and I get this question all the time, and I'm glad to probably have that as another segment, but that's millennials. And millennials are a different type of salesperson that comes in the door. And what I mean by that is, most of your old salespeople are extrinsically motivated. And that means they want the best comp plan out there. Now, that's not saying a millennial doesn't want that, but they're more intrinsically motivated. So they want the recognition, they want the advancement in the organization, they want to shake the CEO's hand. A little bit different, and you need to know what motivates the people you're hiring. And if you don't know that, you're going to lose them.
Yeah,
So
you're right. I had a millennial that worked with me, and I struggle with that at first. You know, once I figured some of what you're talking about, though, okay, we got off okay. But I tell you what, it was, to me, who I'm not a millennial. I hate to say it, but I'm a little older than that now. But I know it's tough to tell, you know. But I used to have hair, but but once I got the hang of it, it took us a good couple months to kind of figure that out.
And let me elaborate on that just a little bit more. Why is that important? Because today, if you look at the millennials and I've had this conversation all the time, so I can speak from fact and experience, most of them have had 3, 4, 5 jobs by the time they're 30. I had one.
Yeah.
As an example, because again, I'm like you, I'm not a millennial. But so it's important to make sure you have the process and you know what motivates that person you're bringing in. And do they want to come in the door? And is there a good fit? Well, if you don't have the right process in place, you could be hiring someone it's going to be, someone that's not going to stay around very long. I'll digress for just a second. I had the conversation just a week ago, and they wanted my help as I was working with them. I never saw this person's resume. And from what I was looking at through our process, I asked, how many jobs has this person had? Are they a job hopper? And they said, how did you know that? I said, I can just tell. And they said, we were just discussing that we were concerned because we love him. However, he's had 4 jobs in 8 years. He's jumping ship every 1.5, 2 years. That's where you want to make sure you're bringing in someone who is going to have longevity, going back to the ROI part of this equation.
Right.
And you need to make sure you're getting, let's say, 5x of your investment out of this person before they leave you.
Yep, that makes sense. So, well, let's do this. So, and the reason that I wanted you to come on board is because I hear it all the time from my own clients that, they're struggling to find a salesperson. And I have one client in particular that was asking me, he said, hey, I've known this guy, for a long time, he seems like a nice guy. And as soon as he said that, oh gosh, we're in trouble. Nice guy. I said, so do you know anything about his sales history? He says, well, no, but he seems to be able to communicate really well with people and tells good jokes. And oh my gosh, here we go. So I immediately thought of Jeff Hines. I really did. I said, I've got to get Jeff back on the podcast. As soon as I do, you are going to be forced to hear this and pay attention because even though I'm not an expert at it, and Jeff, you are, but I said, hang on, I won't say his name here, but just hang on, because I don't know that you might be wasting your money. Let's do something else. And he listened, so he didn't hire him. And I don't know, maybe that guy's going on to be, top of the table, $1 million round table or something on life insurance. I don't know what, but yeah, exactly. So, but walk us through, I know you have your process because you talked about it. Give us a little bit of a taste of what a process should look like, if you're a business owner or you're a sales manager.
Sure. That's a great question. What that looks like is, first of all, in having that process, consistency. Does HR, sales managers, VPs, do they all go through the same process? Is there a consistent interviewing process that they use? Is there a scorecard? And I will tell you, the companies I run across, 90% do not use scorecards. So if you get, person from organization 1, 2, 3, and 4, they all have different reasons why they did vote or did not vote for that candidate to join the organization. But there's no consistency. So that's another huge reason of why you want a process in place. So when you take it to the next step, now that you've got that consistency in place, now it's going to write the ads, as I touched on. You want to write that killer ad. You want that person to say, that's me.
Right.
Now, where do you post the ad? Use a good site.
So now how do you tell what sites you should be using? I mean, everybody's going to be a little bit different in the industry now, but right. What's a good rule of thumb, or is there a rule of thumb?
Well, if you're looking for candidates, obviously LinkedIn and Indeed are the two. But when you're posting, you want to go and maybe pay $150 for 30 days for a good ad to run. And the more important one, Brad, is really this step before, because I'm going to throw some numbers out there. If I've got a job that I'm looking for $125,000 salary and $125,000 commission plan, like it's a $250,000 on target earnings. With all due respect, I don't want the guy making $50,000. And guess what? If you just do what most companies do, and it's no shot to anybody, but they copy the job description from the internet, they post it on whatever site they post it on, and they get 100 resumes.
Right.
Especially if they posted, this is a $250,000 OTE job.
And today you're going to get probably more than that. Yeah, exactly.
That's correct. Yeah. So you want to be honest in the ad, and you want to post it in the right places, a bright place. The other thing is that then you jump into using automation. Okay. I want to use automation. There's very good tools out there to use to be able to take and have some upfront evaluation done or analysis done on that candidate to see if they really fit the profile. And again, that goes back to with the job description and where you post it. It's then having the right role specification, because a channel sales role versus an inside sales role versus an enterprise sales role, those are all different people.
They sure are.
So you need to make sure you have that job specification or role specification written properly. And in that automation, that will mesh and marry your role specification against that candidate and will weed out the people that don't really qualify. And will save you a lot of time, effort, and potentially money from you bringing in someone who doesn't fit.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One question I get this every once in a while is, how much you're talking about the automation part. Are you talking about where they throw in their resume and then you have automation to go and scan it for keywords, that kind of automation? Or are you talking about something different?
I'm talking about something different, actually. I'm talking about all the way through the submission process, then the application process, an ATS system. You might have heard of that, application tracking system. Right. Okay, which will take the resumes, and then it's the testing process, which is an automated process, which then is the part where I touched on taking your role specification, channel manager, and matching all these resumes coming in. Well, the ones that don't match your criteria for a channel manager, those get weeded out and saves you a lot of time from interviewing, calling, etc. So yes, I do mean something different than just having a keyword search on something.
Yep, gotcha.
And then in that process, to just finish it out, really comes down to then once you find that smaller set of prospects for or candidates for the job, now you've got a phone interview, 5 to 10 minutes. That's it. And then you figure out which of those candidates, and that patented 5-minute interview, believe me, I've used it when I was on the other side again in my sales roles. It works. And it really puts the challenge to the candidate, because any candidate today, especially, with the unfortunate situation going on, they got to be on. It's got to be game on for them. So they get in whether it's a 5-minute interview or a 1-hour interview, they've got to be on. So if you toss them the 5 questions in our interview process, and you'll figure out right away who's on and who you want to bring forward.
So what kind of questions do you ask? Or are you allowed to tell me that? I don't want to, no trade secrets here, but I mean, what kind of question, just kind of a rule of thumb, what should you be asked? I mean, 5-10 minutes, that goes by pretty quick.
Yeah, it does. And really it's, you feel or you get a real sense how they react to, let's say, questions 1 and 2, which are kind of softballs in a way. But then number 5 is, okay, tell me why I would hire you and take you to the next step. And do you have any questions? If they say, well, Brad, I don't have any questions, and boy, I'd love to. They don't try to sell you. They don't try to close you. They don't ask any questions. What do you think of that candidate?
Probably mediocre.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So
not really inspiring. Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, that testing process I talked about, you've got something on them right now also that you are reading from that says, okay, yeah, I get a good feel for who this is, because the only people I'm talking to right now are someone who's made it through the hiring process to this point. And now I got my finalist, so to speak, out of 20 candidates, I'm looking at 4.
Gotcha.
And in my 5-minute interview, it's easy to pick out the 2 or 3 that I want to really move forward with.
So that 5-minute interview is really kind of
it's
only 5 minutes, so it doesn't take a lot of time. So you can, if you've got 3 or 4 or 5 candidates narrowed down from your automation, then it really doesn't have to take you a lot of time to go through this. You can schedule them all bang, 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 bang if you want to. And that way they're all fresh in your mind.
Because how important is it to think on your feet? And when you've only got 5 minutes and you tell them it's 5 minutes up front, you're going to see how they think on their feet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's not important at all in sales, is it? I mean, nothing ever goes right. I mean, and nothing goes as planned. So you're going to have to improvise somehow.
Correct.
And the key is to improvise to make it feel like, yeah, that's what I thought. No big deal. Yeah, that's kind of what we expected. So cool. So, okay. So now you got down to, you've weeded them out and you've got just a few candidates left. So how do you pick the winner?
So now that's where it comes down to, you've got, let's keep it easy here and say there's 2 finalists out of 20. And I'll stick with the same scenario I painted. Now you've got, based on your process, you have 2 qualified candidates. They've passed the mustard test, so to speak. Right. So you've got 2 good candidates. And then you take them through your process of talking to how many people you want to have them talk to in your organization, having that consistent scorecard, getting back on the phone with your team internally and going through each of the areas on the scorecard and how they felt the person scored in those areas. And then what are the next steps with that candidate, if any?
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. So I know we've covered a lot of things that hopefully will get some people thinking here a little bit. And it's important because, man, it's not just critical for the hiring manager, but it's also for the salesperson too. You don't want to go in. You should probably have something in mind too before you just, I'll take anything that, as long as they throw some dollars at me. Because as you said, millennials, they like things more than just money, don't they? Yep. So you've got to have your own scorecard too. So good stuff. So we covered a lot, but what didn't I ask you that I should have?
Well, I think the one thing we did touch on in the middle of the discussion was the onboarding. I think you said the word onboarding. And I think that once the person's hired, I think that's the other part of the hiring process that many companies don't take serious enough. Because if you bring that person on board and they're not ramped properly, you could lose them right away, even though they were a great candidate and a potential great employee. You didn't have a good onboarding process, you lose them.
So go
That
get them,
process-
Tiger is not the process you're talking about.
Exactly. And ramp up and onboarding and then leads to retention. And that's very important.
Yep.
Because forget about the opportunity cost we talked at the beginning. Bringing someone on board is not inexpensive. It's not an inexpensive venture. You're paying them salary, hopefully, they're up and running in 30 days. But if it's a 90-day ramp up at your particular company, that's 90 days of paying salary, a territory possibly sitting idle while this person is able to get their value proposition and their elevator pitch.
Right.
Okay. And that, again, very important areas that you need to make sure that you're hitting right between the eyes, so to speak, because if you don't nail it, you're costing your company money.
So that brings up a question that I had was, so how prepared should the salesperson be and let me reframe this up. So we don't want them to take 90 days, 120 days to get where they're producing something, because that's costing us money. I mean, there's some industries, I get it. It just, maybe you can't avoid it, but most are not like that. You want to get them producing right away. So how much in the interview process, I mean, do you actually have them come up with bring your business plan of how you think you would get us to market or something like that? Or is that part of it, or you should not do that? What are your thoughts?
So my thought is on that is every company is going to have their process, and it might be in someone's process, but I can tell you through the process that we teach and that we have, you will know, and there's two key components, and that's desire and commitment. Okay. And then there's another one that goes closely behind that, which is, we call it a figure it out factor. And that is, if I give this individual some new information, how quickly can they apply it and become productive and effective in selling?
Gotcha.
And again, through the process, it's not only can they sell, because every candidate that walks through the door is going to tell you and I they can sell.
Yep. They're the best salespeople in the world. Just ask them. Yeah, they'll tell you.
And it's will they sell your product to your customers at your price and basically sell the value of your product to keep your profits and margins intact?
Yep, exactly. Well, there's a good stuff, and I know that you could go on and on and on, because there is so much to hiring the right person, if you will. But so unfortunately, they kick us off the air here anytime. So I guess we'll have to wrap it up here a little bit. But how do people reach you when they have questions?
Sure. So again, my name is Jeff Hines, and my email address is very simple. It's Jeff, Jeff, at ASLIINC.com.
I'll make sure and put that up so people can see it too.
All right, great. And my phone number, 312-213-3010. And love talking about the topic, both on the hiring that we just went through with you, Brad, and then it's also on the other side, which is the current team, which is all about identifying the gaps and deficiencies of the current team and how do we level them up to make them more productive.
We didn't even talk about that, did we?
No.
Well, it looks like we'll be bringing you back one more time at some point then.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, once again, hey, a special thanks to Jeff Hines of Accelerated Sales Leadership for really sharing some really, really, really good ideas. I really hope that you've listened you can apply some of those principles, but more importantly is get the process, as Jeff mentioned. And when you have questions, it sounds to me like one bad hire will more than well pay for Jeff's services. I'll put it that way. You'll save a lot by just keeping one bad hire out of your system. So Jeff, again, thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you, Brad, and great topic, and enjoyed speaking to everyone today.